Oh, hello again, you extraordinary subscribers. Welcome back, everybody, to the Hemingway Land YouTube channel. So, perhaps some of you will recall a legal case from the mid-90s. When I was growing up, this was kind of infamous in the news, and even if you were not around at that time, or even if you do not recall it from that time, most likely the reputation of that case is one that you have heard of, and it is the one where the guy goes to McDonald's, orders a cup of coffee, spills the coffee on his lap, and then sues McDonald's because there's no disclaimer on the coffee cup saying that coffee is hot. And how else would I have known? Okay. And we don't know if that person was genuinely that stupid or feigning that level of stupidity for the purposes of a cash settlement with a major corporation. But we could probably assume that it was the second of the two. Whatever the case, since that time I have been keenly aware, both from that, as well as numerous circumstances I have had to interact with attorneys, both in a friendly and adversarial manner, that we need to be very precise as a business about the language that we use and the guarantees that we make. And this is why, or one of the many reasons why, when people call us, and we get this call all the time, asking, what's the water table depth, or how much will it cost me to drill a well, this is why we will never, ever, ever answer that question. Even if I knew the answers to that question, we here at Hemingway Land will never answer that question because people, I am willing to bet all the money in my pockets against all the money in your pockets that one day we'll get a call. We would quote a number, $10,000. They would buy the property. They'd drill the well. It would come to $10,029. And then they'd be complaining 3 months later about, I got overcharged and this is a scam and I want my $29 back and blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to go through that, okay? For the sake of my own sanity, my own blood pressure, so on and so forth, I don't want to deal with nonsense like that. And that is why we say you should talk to professional well drillers, vendors in the local region who know the water table depth and cost and so on and so forth. This is why we defer to them, utility companies, so on and so forth. Okay, so I go out of my way, I trip over myself and everything that's written on the website to be clear about what we guarantee, what we stand by, what we recommend you research, things we should know, things we would never realistically know, and it's part of your due diligence, so on and so forth. And yet it came to my attention this past week that there is something on the website where we do in fact quote a number. And it is this page of the website, the Title and Escrow Facts page, a page, by the way, which clearly no one has ever read and is purely decorative, but it is on this page, guys, where we attempt to answer common questions that we get from people who are unfamiliar with the title and escrow process. Buying a property, closing through a title company, we attempt to answer those questions here. And about halfway down the page, we have this question, what should I expect closing costs to be? Now, people, let me briefly stop and say this. While I am reluctant to discuss the costs drilling a well, or water table depth, or what does it cost to get power run from A to B. While I am reluctant to discuss those things, it is because I have never done those things. I have no experience with those things, etc. Title companies, however, I have a wealth of experience with. At this point, thousands and thousands of properties in the last 10 years of my life, homes, land, so on and so forth, I can quote title company costs with a fair degree of accuracy. Okay. So we have, in response to that question, we have a little answer here, and it says, for title companies in the continental United States, it's safe to budget $750 to $1,000. For title companies in Hawaii, safe to budget $1,500 to $2,000. Okay. And then, guys, there's a little paragraph follow-up, a little bit of CYA, that says these costs will obviously differ company to company and state to state, and may increase depending on the amount you're insuring the land for. For a precise sense of what title and escrow fees will be, it's recommended you contact the title company early in the process and ask them for a quote. Okay, that's how that paragraph is intended to be read. I know that's how nobody would read it mentally if anybody ever did bother to read it, but the point, guys, is that we quote a figure and then we say, hey, by the way, it's a whole different company we have no control over. Call them. Talk to them, okay? And this is something, of course, that's written on this phantom page that nobody reads, but it's something that if you're going to buy a property from us and close through title and escrow, it's part of a PDF, Q&A PDF that we provide day one, saying here's everything you need to know, common questions, detailed answers, so on and so forth, number one. And number two, we provide the contact information for the title company. And we say, contact them early, contact them often, introduce yourself, ask questions, so on and so forth. All right. I think you guys see where this story is going. Whatever the case, we have now reached the closing date on a contract, and the buyer has contacted us, and they said, hey, you lied to me. Oh, God. All right. How so, sir? You said the title company, the closing cost would be $1,000, but they're charging us $1,300. Okay, now people, I don't know if anybody watching this video thinks that like, oh, well, that's a large chasm of difference there, Hemingway. But in my mind, I think we estimated 1,000 as 1,300. I think that's a pretty safe estimate. And oh, by the way, it's an estimate. And oh, by the way, again, we told you to talk to the title company on day one if you had questions. But guys, look, let me say this, guys. Let me say this. If you're putting together the money to purchase a property by pulling nickels and dimes out of couch cushions, then yeah, it behooves you to talk to the title company on day one. And if you're sitting on $1 million, if you're Scrooge McDuckin in your free time, okay, then yeah, and you can afford anything, then who cares? But if it's like really important that this come in under a certain figure, call them and ask. We don't work for them, they don't work for us, so on and so forth. Well, anyway, shockingly, guys, we've managed to go 6 years into this business, and in retrospect, I don't know how this happened, where somebody didn't complain about that. But we finally got that complaint this past week of, oh, you said 1,000, it's 1,300. And I bring this up in reference to the coffee cup situation, because to me, my outlook is like, you're an adult. How do you not know to call the title company and ask them? How does it not occur to you that this is so sensitive? Why wouldn't you call and talk to them? How do you not know that coffee is hot? And why, you may be wondering, am I bothering to waste the time of you fine people tonight with this story? Why am I bothering to share this here? And here is the reason, people. Again, catharsis. Catharsis. I can't tell the buyer this. I can't call the person up and say, I think you're not very smart. I can't do that. So this is the way that I vent this frustration and alleviate this from my life, burden off my shoulders. I share it with you people here. Anyway, with all that said, guys, let's get to this week's new properties. All right, people, we are back this week with 3 new properties in central Colorado's Teller County. More specifically, guys, we have 3 new lots in the enviable Colorado Mountain Estates community, priced respectively between $22,000 and $29,000. Now, I covered this region in a previous video a couple weeks ago when we debuted our first lots out here, but for those of you who missed that, or for those of you who simply have terrible memories, I will now do a brief recap. Here we go, guys. The Colorado Mountain Estates subdivision is located here in Teller County, about an hour outside Colorado Springs over here, 40 minutes outside Woodland Park over here, 30 minutes north of Cripple Creek down here, and a mere 5-minute drive from Florissant up here. More precisely, the subdivision is located here in the roughly 2,000 acres of land sandwiched between Teller County Road 1 and the Florissant fossil beds in the west and Mueller State Park in the east. And as you can see from the drone footage, guys, this is a forested mountain community with well-maintained roads, power, and underground telecom all throughout the sub. Very nice home sites reflecting a clear pride of ownership amongst the neighbors, no riffraff here, as well as some nice community fishing ponds, and all set against the backdrop of the Pike San Isabel National Forest. Now, as you'll see from the sign that greets you as you enter the subdivision, the Colorado Mountain Estates community is a covenant-protected and architecturally controlled community. And what does that mean, guys? Well, it means they have rules. They have a property owners association, they collect annual dues, and they enforce rules. But you remember all those nice things I mentioned 5 seconds ago, guys? Well-maintained roads, utilities, nice homes, no riffraff, fishing ponds. Those things don't really exist without the POA collecting these dues and enforcing these rules. Additionally, this POA, unlike a lot of POAs that exist, actually provides a service for the money you give them. Not just the road maintenance, not just stocking the ponds of fish, but also plenty of fire prevention activities, always good in a setting like this, as well as approving structures in the sub and helping residents with permitting through the county. And this, of course, is a benefit because it means they help to maintain the community, and hence, your property values will increase over time. So after you pay Hemingway a bunch of money for some land, it appreciates in value as time goes on. Not bad, guys. I think we can all agree, not bad. Whatever the case, the 3 new properties we have in this region break down as follows. Our first of the 3 lots is located in the southeastmost part of the sub along Pignon Lane. This is a nice hillside lot with a gradual incline from the road to the back or eastern end of the property, which of course will provide some nice views if you build up top. And like most of the sub, Pignon Lane is a very well-maintained road marked by underground telecom lines. Now, it should be noted, guys, this is actually one of the rare lots in the sub that doesn't have power lines immediately at the parcel boundary. That being said, if we go back to the map here, you will see that they stop about 400 feet south of the subject property at this developed home site here. Additionally, you'll notice a lot of built-up homes around it, all of which very likely have residential power lines, and thus such thing will likely not be difficult to get extended out to the property in question. Moving on. Our next property is located here where Bison Lane meets South Mountain Estates Road. And as you can see from the photos, this one has well-maintained roads, power at the lot line, as well as underground telecom boxes. Additionally, guys, this is a largely flat lot, or one of the flatter lots you're going to find out here, so it'll make it that much easier to develop. And finally, guys, our third property this week is this one, located here off Montana Circle, just a few blocks from Lake Magnuson, one of the fishing ponds that I mentioned earlier. Now, it should be noted, guys, that this property is a little different from the others in that it is, one, larger than the average parcel you find out here, coming in at 3/4 of an acre instead of the typical half-acre lot. 2, it is a cul-de-sac lot, or I'm stretching the definition of cul-de-sac a little bit, guys, but it's pretty close, so just go with me on that. And 3, it has a terrain which slopes nicely back from the road to the eastern or back end of the property, as you can kind of make out in some of the photos here. Additionally, guys, it should be noted that while this property has the typical well-maintained roads and underground telecom, you will see no images, none, of power lines. That being said, if we go back to the map, you will see a developed home site right here across from the land, which for some reason our photographer didn't send back any pictures of. If he had, however, oh my god, guys, you would see it is clearly shown in the satellite here, which are residential power lines stopping just short at the corner of Montana and Nevada. Point being, like with the other properties, I would argue not difficult to get extended out to the land and hence to develop the property. Now finally, guys, it should be noted that because we now have 5 listings in the sub, we've created a Colorado Mountain Estates master information page where you can more easily read, learn, and absorb a lot of the information we have about this region, as well as more easily navigate from listing to listing with our handy list of properties you see here. In addition, guys, we'll have a subdivision FAQ on this page, which I will probably add to as time goes on and I come to learn what the common questions are for this region. But as of now, it does have what are probably the top 20 or 25 or so questions that we get all the time. One last thing to note, guys, that all of these properties, like all the ones we've been listing in Teller County recently, will all be listed with our buddy Rob the Realtor with Whitetail Properties. Point being, if you don't want to purchase through the website, you can always call Rob and deal with him directly. And his information, as always, will be included on all the individual listing pages. With all that said, going live on the website next week, we are back in New Mexico for another rollout of a bulk acquisition of small dollar properties, which we have been working on since, I kid you not, guys, April. Don't get me started. Point being, for all of you who are getting sick of seeing all these new listings priced at $25,000 and $50,000, you'll be glad to know that next week we'll be back with more of these super affordable lots you guys like so much. Our bread and butter, guys. Bread and butter. Anyway, until such time, have a great 7 days, everyone, and we'll see you back here in next week's Dramatic Pause video.